Welcome to A1 Storyteller, the place where the truth gets raw, real, and unforgettable. Here, we don't sugarcoat reality. We bring you stories that expose the pain, reveal the power, and shine a light on the people the world tries to ignore. Today's story is one that will leave you speechless. It's about judgment, injustice, and ultimate reckoning. A Black disabled mother, covered in tattoos, living quietly with her son, gets violently profiled by a racist cop simply because of how she looks. So sick. But when he steps on her neck and drags her in public, he has no idea that her husband is someone powerful, someone trained, someone deadly. What happens next is justice like you've never seen before. This is Racist Cop Stomps on Black Disabled Mother for Tattoos, finds who her husband really is. Only on A1 Storyteller, where the truth isn't just told, it's felt. Marissa Holloway wasn't trying to be seen. She lived in the back corner of a quiet neighborhood in Augusta, Georgia, a double amputee after a car accident 5 years earlier. Marissa kept to herself, raising her 9-year-old son, Jalen, in a world that never seemed to show her kindness. The tattoos that ran down her arms, across her neck, and up to her jaw weren't decorations. They were memories. They were memories, markers of survival, each one a chapter: the car wreck, her time in rehab, the miscarriage, the death of her brother in Afghanistan, the names of those she'd loved, the pain she'd survived. Her neighbors called her the tattooed cripple. Some whispered worse, but she didn't care. Not really. Because she knew who she was, and more importantly, who her husband was. Officer Darren Wilkes liked being feared. He walked his patrol route like a king in his kingdom. White, ex-military, and raised on a law and order, Darren had a history of aggressive policing, especially when it came to Black residents in the area. Everyone knew his name. And when he saw Marissa on the corner outside the pharmacy one Saturday afternoon, waiting for her prescription while Jalen sat beside her in his wheelchair, he didn't see a struggling mother. He saw what he wanted to see. Tattooed thug, drug mule, welfare queen. "Mom," he said, loud enough to draw attention. "You loitering or selling something?" Marissa looked up from her phone, squinting. "Excuse me? You heard me," he snapped, stepping closer. "This area is for shoppers only." "Well, I am shopping," she replied. "My medication is inside. My son and I are just waiting." He smirked. "And you expect me to believe that?" She stayed calm. Yes, but Wilkes didn't like being challenged, especially not by a Black woman in a wheelchair with tattoos. He yanked the bag from her lap, spilling her son's juice and medical papers across the sidewalk. Jalen started to cry. "Hey," she shouted, "that's my stuff, my kid's stuff." And then it happened. He shoved her wheelchair over, hard. Marissa hit the pavement with a sickening thud. Her prosthetic leg snapped at the knee. Her body twisted sideways as people started screaming. Then came the stomp. Right on her back. "A stop resisting," he yelled. She wasn't moving. She couldn't. Jalen screamed. Jalen screamed, "Mommy, mommy." A crowd formed. Phones came out, but none stepped forward, yet. And Officer Wilkes leaned into his radio with a smug grin. "Got another one, probably high. Might need backup." Marissa, dazed and in pain, whispered through clenched teeth, "You're making a mistake," he chuckled. "Yeah? How so?" "My husband is coming." Wilkes rolled his eyes. "He's coming." Wilkes rolled his eyes. "Yeah, well, maybe he should have taught you some manners." One bystander, a young Black woman named Ari, had started filming everything. She stepped forward. "Sir, you need to let her up. You're gonna be sued into the dirt." "She's resisting." "She can't move, you idiot. She's disabled." But Wilkes was focused on the radio call and didn't hear Jalen crying out the name. "Daddy's coming. Wait till my daddy gets here." That's when Ari asked the boy, "What's your daddy's name?" Jalen sniffled. "A Major Holloway." Ari's jaw dropped. "You mean like Delta Force Major Eric Holloway?" Jalen nodded. Wilkes looked up. "Who?" And Ari stepped back, eyes wide. "You messed up." Back, eyes wide. "You messed up." Most people in Augusta had no idea who Eric Holloway truly was. To the neighborhood, he was a quiet, humble husband who pushed his wife's wheelchair up ramps and walked his son to school every morning. He wore sweatshirts and baseball caps, stayed out of gossip, and never raised his voice. But behind that calm exterior was a soldier forged in fire. Major Eric "A Ghost" Holloway, as he was known in elite circles, had spent over a decade in Delta Force. He'd led classified missions in Afghanistan, dismantled terrorist cells in Yemen, and extracted hostages from the darkest corners of the world. He had stood in places where a wrong move meant death, and survived them all. But he had only one weakness, only one true pressure point that could send him over the edge: his family. When the call from Jalen came through and he saw his son crying, panicked, and screaming about his mother being stomped by a cop, the ghost returned. Eric didn't rage. He didn't panic. He simply moved, fast, calculated, and determined to eliminate the threat. Officer Darren Wilkes still had Marissa pinned, his knee jabbing into her spine, his voice thick with arrogance. His walkie-talkie buzzed with updates. The backup he requested was on its way. He had no idea what was really coming. Jalen, hands shaking, activated the emergency alert on his smartwatch. It instantly pinged his father. Eric's face appeared on the screen, sharp and focused even from thousands of miles away. "Jalen," he said. "What's going on?" "Daddy, Mommy's hurt." "The police stomped her. He's on top of her." Eric's tone didn't change. "Where are you?" Jalen turned his watch toward the street sign. Eric locked it in. "Do not let go of your mother's hand. I'm 2 minutes out." Then he hung up. Jalen looked at Officer Wilkes, his fear now mingled with something else, something new. 2 blocks away, the quiet hum of a matte black military-grade SUV sliced through the air. It moved like a phantom, tinted windows gleaming, unmarked except for a small government plate on the back. It didn't slow for traffic. People instinctively moved out of its path. When it screeched to a halt in front of Officer Wilkes, the crowd turned as one. The door opened. Out stepped a man in dark tactical gear, broad-shouldered, 6'3", a scar just under his eye, and a presence that sucked the air out of the space around him. Major Eric Holloway. He didn't yell. He didn't run. He walked slowly, purposefully, toward his wife and son. The crowd parted, sensing the change in energy. Wilkes squinted, confused, reaching for his sidearm. Eric didn't flinch. "I wouldn't do that," he said coldly. Wilkes' hand froze. "Back away, sir. This is police business." Eric took another step. "That's my wife, on the ground, injured, crying, injured, crying." Wilkes puffed his chest. "She resisted. A 1. Eric counted softly. "Sir, I'm warning you. A 2. I'll place you under arrest if you..." A 3. In a flash, Eric moved. His hand twisted Wilkes' wrist until the gun dropped. In one fluid motion, he swept his leg and brought Wilkes down hard, pinning his face to the pavement with the same knee the officer had pressed into Marissa's back. Jalen gasped. The crowd erupted in cheers. Marissa looked up and whispered, "You came." Eric, eyes still locked on Wilkes, replied, "Always." Backup police cars arrived within seconds. They skidded to a stop, lights flashing, doors flying open. Officers raised weapons, but when they saw who had subdued Wilkes, they froze. One young officer recognized the man instantly. "Holy yee. That's Ghost." "That's Major Holloway." The supervising sergeant stepped forward cautiously. "Major Holloway, we received a distress call. Can you let us take control of the scene?" Eric didn't let go of Wilkes immediately. He pressed a little harder. "This man assaulted my wife. Disabled. Non-violent." He stomped her into the pavement. The sergeant nodded. "Yes, sir. We're pulling his body cam footage now. I'll want every second preserved," Eric said firmly. "If one frame disappears, I'll know. And I'll make sure this department gets disassembled one policy at a time." The sergeant hesitated. "Understood, Major." Eric stood slowly and stepped back. Wilkes groaned on the ground, coughing dust and blood, his pride shattered. Eric knelt beside Marissa, lifted her gently, and held her close. "I got you," he whispered. Jalen wrapped his arms around them both. For the first time that day, he felt safe. The cameras rolled. The crowd went wild, but Eric didn't notice. He was already calculating next steps. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted change. By that night, the video had already reached 3 million views. The clip of Officer Wilkes stomping on Marissa, followed by the thunderous arrival of Major Eric Holloway, was everywhere, from Twitter to CNN to YouTube reaction videos. The raw emotion, the brutal injustice, the calm fury of a trained warrior protecting his queen, it struck a chord with people around the world. Justice for Marissa #StopTheStomp not just tattoos, these hashtags surged to the top of trending charts. People weren't just watching. They were rallying. At City Hall, over 5,000 people gathered in protest the next morning, holding signs with her name. A mural went up overnight on a nearby wall. Marissa in her wheelchair, wrapped in tattoos like armor, with Jalen standing proud beside her. The mayor, caught completely off guard, issued a tone-deaf statement about a police training and respect. But the people weren't buying it. Because Marissa wasn't just a victim. She had become a symbol. Internal chaos within the department inside the Augusta Police Department. Things were unraveling fast. Wilkes had lied in his initial report, claimed Marissa had a weapon, claimed she lunged at him from her wheelchair, claimed her son was being used to distract. But multiple angles of bystander footage proved otherwise. The Internal Affairs Division had no choice. They suspended Wilkes without pay pending investigation. But Eric Holloway wasn't waiting. He had already called 3 generals, a retired state senator, and a civil rights attorney with a 100% win rate against corrupt cops. A day later, a federal investigation was launched. This wasn't just a local scandal anymore. It was national. Marissa's recovery wasn't easy. She spent 3 weeks in the hospital, bruised ribs, a dislocated shoulder, a cracked prosthetic leg. But when reporters tried to frame her as a helpless victim, she shut that down quick. "I've been through worse," she said from her hospital bed. "I survived the wreck that took my legs. I survived raising a son as a disabled black woman in a world that judged me every day. This isn't the end. This is just where the world finally paid attention." Jalen's voice, Jalen, usually shy, became unexpectedly vocal. In one news interview, when asked what he thought about the cop who hurt his mom, he didn't rage. He simply said, "He looked at my mommy like she was trash, but she's the best person I know. I hope he learns how to see better." That clip alone was turned into a meme. Quote, a movement. A Learn How to See Betters. It appeared on protest signs, shirts, and murals around the country. Jalen's voice became the quiet strength that reinforced his mother's power. Eric's purpose reignited Eric, once the shadow soldier, calm, precise, surgical. He wasn't fighting insurgents anymore. He was fighting systems. He appeared on major networks, reluctantly at first, then with increasing urgency. "This isn't about one rogue cop," he said during a live CNN panel. "It's about who they believe they can hurt and walk away from. We train soldiers not to fire, unless it's necessary." Why can't we train cops the same way? People listened. Veterans backed him. Police reform groups asked him to speak. The ghost had stepped into the light. The city of Augusta offered Marissa a multi-million-dollar settlement. She declined the first offer. "This isn't about money," she told them. "This is about accountability." They offered again, this time with public apologies, full disciplinary actions, and a promise to reform their use of force protocols. Only then did Marissa and Eric accept. But with a condition: half the settlement would be used to create a space of healing and change. The Holloway House 6 months later, a grand opening was held downtown. The building had once been an abandoned factory. Now it stood reborn, clean, bright, and buzzing with energy. The front sign read, "The Holloway House for the fighters they overlooked." Inside were classrooms for veterans transitioning back to civilian life, therapy offices for trauma survivors, daycare spaces for single parents, and even a small tattoo parlor in the back, Link of Strength, where tattoo artists offered free ink sessions for people memorializing their pain and survival. One of the first walls featured a massive mural. Marissa in full color, tattoos glowing like armor, seated proudly in her wheelchair, Jalen by her side, and Eric standing just behind, hand on her shoulder, eyes forward, watching the world. Wilkes's fate officer Darren Wilkes didn't walk away untouched. After the federal case concluded, he was fired without pension, blacklisted from law enforcement jobs, hit with a civil lawsuit that drained his personal finances, and ultimately charged with felony assault under color of law. He tried to play the victim in interviews, but no one bought it. His face, once smug and dismissive in that viral video, became a national example of how the wrong kind of power corrupts absolutely. Marissa's legacy. Marissa went on to write a memoir, Tattoos and Truths, which became a bestseller. In it, she shared her life story, the abuse, the recovery, the fight, the moment the world finally saw her. She toured schools, community centers, even spoke at the United Nations. At one talk, when asked what she wanted people to learn from her story, she said, "Don't judge people by their damage." Sometimes that's where the beauty lives. The crowd gave a standing ovation. This is A1 storyteller, and that was the story of Marissa Holloway, the Black disabled mother who stood tall even after being stomped on, and the man behind her who brought a system to its knees. In a world where people judge what they see, sometimes it takes a storm to remind them what strength really looks like. If this story moved you, inspired you, or fired you up, fire like this video speech balloon, comment your thoughts, loudspeaker, share this story far and wide, bell, and subscribe for more true style, powerful stories from A1 storyteller, because these voices deserve to be heard. You never know who someone really is. You never know who's watching. And you never know whose story we'll tell next.